So I think it's kind of like generating and people are hopping on. So do we kind of want to talk about like how you're the one who had this great idea for this topic. Do you kind of want to share how we kind of came to this and why we're talking about this today?
Let's do that. I think background information is key, and I think it's helpful to frame things with how we end up with our topics. So Stacy and I have been doing live for a few, I don't know, months now. We just randomly do them because we get excited about a topic and we want to have conversations. And so this one came about because I did a post called, "What do you struggle with the most as it relates to raising children?" And I posted it in several different groups, and it literally blew up, because the comments would not stop coming. And I think they went past 200 comments. And at some point I just stopped checking because I was just like, I have a life. I've got work to do. I can't do this. But
that's when you've made it, like on social media, when you get so many comments that you just have to stop. You have to stop replying.
Yeah. I remember that day I was working, and before I went to work, I responded to some people because out of politeness, I didn't want to make them feel rude that I've asked a question and they've responded and I haven't responded back. So I did that, but I think I lost count after 50 because it was just getting too much. I just couldn't. And then randomly, so it was, I think, 4 different moms groups that I posted it on. And one of the groups, it just took off. And the one thing that bubbled up, there were many, many things that they were struggling with raising children. But one thing that bubbled up, and Zlata, a sweet friend, she also called me. She's like, "I want to talk about this." I'm like, yes. The mom guilt was the one thing that was consistent, and it was wide ranging. And I'll just share some of the things that were showing up in that. Were the guilt ranged from the time that you have to take them for the very first time to a childcare center. The very first time you have to leave a little baby, the guilt starts from that. Then the guilt went on to, and these are comments that I'm sharing. So the guilt ranged from, do I give them too much love? Do I not give them enough love? Do I give them too much attention? Not enough attention? Do I empower them? Do I enable them? Am I doing too much for them? Am I not doing enough for them? Am I making them confident? Am I taking away their self-esteem? And if you have 2 and more children, the guilt was even, am I giving one child more than the other? Am I equally dividing my love and attention? And, the guilt ranged so wide, and that I thought, okay, this is worth Stacy and I having a conversation and taking it to a larger platform, because this is a thing. This is a real thing. Mom guilt is a real thing. And guess what? As a grandmother, you still have this guilt. I still have it. Seriously, it doesn't go away. So I was like, okay, we need to, as women, as mothers, we need to create this space for this conversation. And today's a perfect day, and we just have half an hour. So if anybody wants to put it in the chat, your perspective, your thoughts, feel free to, because this truly is a conversation that we want to hear different perspectives. But that's where it came from. So what about you, Stacy? Do you relate to it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think especially too, which I think I've mentioned on every live, like I'm in a new season of my life as a parent, and that I'm now an empty nester. And I think too, when you look at human development, like in your late 40s and 50s, you start to be very reflective on your life, and you start to see a kind of a change on how you approach things and how you value things. But I kind of at this moment, I'm like looking back going, okay, what are things that I could have done better? Or what are things that I wished I would have done differently? And, I think when my boys were little, we were kind of right on the cusp of, I think there's so much pressure on parents right now that did not exist in prior generations. And I think the job description of mom has grown so much. It's not only are we just taking care of the house and home, but we have jobs and we're accountable to other people as well. And so there are definitely things that I look back on and go, I wished I wished I wouldn't have worried about this as much as I did. I wished that I would have just relaxed. I wished, and one of the notes that I had, you know, from the time we talked last week to now was, um, I wished I would have released myself from perfection. And I think that, you know, knowledge is power. Too much information is stifling, and we're kind of with social media, we're getting glimpses into other people's lives. Whether what we're seeing is accurate or not is a whole other thing. We have TV stations and shows that we're seeing people get perfect houses, and even when people make dinners, they look amazing. We take pictures, and it's almost like you start going, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, and we need to try harder at this. And I think we start getting in that vicious cycle of I'm not being enough, or you know, and we keep finding these things that we're really holding ourselves to an unrealistic standard that doesn't exist.
So really good point. I think perfection is one of those first things that we have to release, because I think a lot of the guilt that comes from the perception of, I need to be the perfect mom. Well, guess what? There isn't a perfect mom, and there isn't a perfect child. So
Right.
that's the first truth that we have to kind of grapple with. The children are the children we get. There's nothing you can do about it. You get what you get, and you can't throw a fit, and you can't you can't send it back. You know, but I also think that God has a bigger plan.
Yeah.
God sends you children, sometimes a sense of humor or whatever you want to call it, but you get the children you get who help you to become the parent. Because guess what? You are not even a parent till you get the child. So you kind of grow together in this relationship of becoming a parent, becoming a mom, raising a child, and every child is unique. And if you're lucky and blessed to have a child that you can connect with, yay, thank you, God. And if you're blessed and you struggle with connecting with your child, then that must be something that is sent to us to learn something from, or to grow from, or to change from. So yeah, no, it doesn't exist. That's I think
Right.
the first thing we need to release ourselves of, that there is no perfect. And also I think the second thing is, as children, and you and I both have grown up children. I have grandchildren, you have grown up children in college. As the children get older, I truly believe this. I think the things they're going to remember from their childhood are not that you were perfect, not that you had the house perfect, not that you created the most amazing meals, but did you show up for them? Did you make time for them? Children carry those memories much deeper. And the other thing that I find very fascinating about all the guilts that I named right in the beginning when we started the conversation, I was reflecting on that. There were majority social emotional guilts. See, so we are hard on ourselves for meeting emotional needs, but emotional needs is what they need the most from us.
Exactly. When my boys were little, my aunt who raised 3 boys, I remember just in conversation, I was like, God, my house is always a mess, you know. And let's be honest, in those days, I wasn't the best housekeeper anyway, but I'm like, my house was just a mess. And I remember my aunt saying, when your boys grow up, you're going to have plenty of time to keep your house clean. All the boys want is you. She's like, don't worry about your house, just worry about being. And that was like very good sound advice, because that really stuck with me, and that's held true. And that's one of the things that you look back on and go, I wished I would have been there more. I would have been more present. When you and I were talking the other day and you're kind of asking things I would have done differently, I'm like, I would have been more present in the moment. I would have not worried about the little. It would have been, and not saying that, and this is another thing I think we have guilt on, that we should be entertaining our children all the time and we should be enriching them all the time. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's when they come to you and go, Mom, look at this, that you're present and you're ready to listen, and you can stop what you're doing for a few minutes and give them that attention. And those are the things when you become an adult that you remember and you go, oh yeah, but my mom was there.
I agree with you 100%. 100%. I think that is one of the guilts that I face as well. And I think the beauty of the seasons of life, so the age that we are and the age that our children are, And I think the beauty of that journey is hindsight is 2020. And the biggest takeaway that I can have from raising my girls is I wish I had not worried so much about doing the dishes and cleaning the house and, doing all of that before meeting their needs. I am so much better at being a grandmother than I ever was.
I keep hearing that that's the best.
It is
Not
the
that
best.
I'm ready for that, but I do keep hearing that it's really good.
I recommend it, but I think there's a lesson that we can share with our moms who are younger, moms of younger kids right now, is that take advantage of this time and have those real conversations. And, we were talking the other day, our children are okay, like they're successful people in life, and yet we carry this guilt. I wish I had done it differently when they were little. So we must have done something right. But again, we carry this guilt with us that, look at us, even right now, we're talking about reflecting. But why don't we get to a place of just celebrating the work that we have done? So instead of coming from the perspective of I should have, could have, would have, why don't we open up the conversation and say, look, being a mother is the hardest job on earth. It is the most important job on earth. You're kind of creating a human being to be successful and on their own feet. Yeah, emotionally, socially, physically, you're providing and nurturing. Why don't we as mothers celebrate each other and say, look, you're doing an awesome job, keep going, instead of reflecting and saying coulda, shoulda, woulda. Just really acknowledge it for yourself right now that I did the best I could when I did. When I know better, I'll do better. But I did my best.
Exactly. So the other day, so you and I kind of came up with the topic last week, and on Monday, I get a daily devotional in my email from a group called Proverbs 31, and it was about mom guilt. And Valerie Burton, I know. And so I want to make sure I give the lady credit who wrote it, Valerie Burton. She
I love Valerie Burton. I'm doing her coaching courses. I love her.
Oh, really? Well, she talked about false guilt. And she said, when you are feeling guilty, when you really have done nothing wrong. And what she connected it with, it was us and our unrealistic expectations. And I'm like, how relevant that ended up in my, in my email on Monday. But we have to, what am I trying to say?
We have to release it.
Yeah, we have to release that. We have to just go, okay. And as a parent, sometimes you do have to make hard decisions. And sometimes you will do things that are not in alignment with what the child wants. And sometimes, but I just thought that was a really good point, that it's things that we're putting on ourselves that we need to just, okay, look, I'm just going to let go and just kind of handle with what I have here.
So this affirms why we are friends, because I am also hooked on to Valerie Burton, and I'm also doing a self-coaching course, and we think alike in that way. The other thing that is valuable that you just mentioned just now, the guilt and not having real guilt, like it's not a real thing. Did you know that there's actually a part of our body that we store the guilt in? Did you know that?
Really? I did not.
Would you want to know which part of your body?
Well, yeah, let us know.
Yeah, there's actually a physical part in our body that we store, and it's a pocket of guilt that we create. It's our left shoulder. So that old phrase, you carry it on your shoulders? It's not made up. Really? It's true. There's a part of us in the body, the left shoulder. So I don't know if you know this, but there's 7 centers in our body, and each center has a special quality, like peace and confidence and creativity. They all come from certain parts of our body, but the guilt sits on our left shoulder. And so when you feel guilty, you're very hard on yourself. You can only see from the lens of all the things wrong you've done. That lens doesn't allow you to see the good that you might be doing, because it's so focused from the lens you're viewing your motherhood, you're viewing your children, or you're viewing the world. And the guilt can be for many reasons, not just mom guilt. It's a real thing. So one of the things that I learned as I was learning more about this center is that if there truly is a lesson to learn, so if you're feeling guilty about something, that truly is a lesson that you can work and improve yourself, then it's worth investigating and implementing the lesson you've learned. It's worth owning it and saying, okay, I goofed up. Now I know better. I won't do that. I'll be conscious of that. I'll be intentional about that. And you can improve as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But the opposite of that is just saying, oh, I feel so guilty, but not doing anything about it and continuing to make that mistake.
Yeah. You know, and then when if you do make a mistake, forgiving yourself, and forgiveness means that you just let it go. It's not saying, oh, it's okay that I did that. It wasn't okay, but I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to learn. I'm going to move on.
Owning
Hey,
it.
we have a couple comments.
Yes.
Okay. From Sheila, need to remember all behavior is a call for more love. So when my teens started saying they hated me, instead of getting triggered or upset, I would flip it and say they need more love. It's great advice.
True, Sheila. So true, Sheila. Behavior is a form of communication. And I so agree with you. It doesn't go away when the children grow up. Even when they're adults, I think even us right now, our behavior is a form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
If we are impatient, if we're angry, if we are frustrated, it's some unmet need from somewhere
Mm-hmm.
that is leaking.
Yeah.
Such a good point, Sheila. Thank you for mentioning that. Teenagers, by the way, are the hardest to parent. Oof. I remember those years well.
Yeah. And I don't, I don't want to stereotype, but I've heard that girls are a little bit more difficult than the teen years with boys, but I have nothing to compare that to. So.
I don't even know how we survived and how the doors in the house are still here. They were banging every minute.
Yeah. Okay, Zlata said, I just always feel like I'm having to pick and choose full-time work versus school versus being a mom. Something's always not getting enough attention. So I pick my son and the school and choose to give up my full-time salary and struggle financially so I can put my kid first and my school second. I can't do all three. I learned that the last 6 years. So I choose my priorities. It's not ideal, but putting my kid first is my ideal.
It is
And
so true.
Yeah.
So true.
And kind of realizing we can't do it all. So, at some point something has to give. And like looking and going, okay, at some point I can get back to this. I know, like, I feel like I always kind of balanced parenthood and my career. Like my career was always part-time. And now we'll see what happens now that, my world's kind of opening up, but at some point you kind of have to go, okay, what is most important in the here and now, and what can be put off to a little bit later, or what are some sacrifices that we can make.
I think Zlata brings up a really good point. I think this is so real for so many parents who have juggling hats that,
Mm-hmm.
And Zlata, you have so much going on, school, work, and raising a family. I mean, that's a lot. So I think making the priority, your son being a priority, is probably going to be the longest long-term investment. Money will come, jobs will come. That's a season, right? We've all been
Mm-hmm.
there.
Right.
And
Do you know when my husband started his business, and this was like 11, 12 years ago, and so my boys were like first and fourth grade, and they both vividly remember it because we had to cut back on so much stuff. Like we went to living about half the salary that we had been used to for like, a couple of years. And it's so funny because my boys look back on that time fondly because we were at home, and we would eat like beans and cornbread all the time. And like we even joked we couldn't afford the rice. It was beans and cornbread. And my boys use that as a statement now. We got a beans and cornbread it for a little bit, but they, like, when they look back, it's not like, oh my gosh, we're without stuff. Like they have these fond memories about it. And it cracks me up that they and I love that it just kind of shows that something, financially we had to sacrifice a lot, but we actually kind of got a lot of together time, and that will stick with them.
But this pandemic has done that for all of us, hasn't it? It has reminded us again how little we need. It has reminded us again how happy we can be living minimally and not going out all the time and this and that. And you and I have joked about this a lot and talked about this a lot, how many things we've learned during the last 7 months. But I think the memories you create when you are cutting back, our lifetime joyful memories. My granddaughter was telling me Halloween is coming. And so she said she has come up with a plan for this year that she wants to dress up in the house. Her and her parents will dress up in the house and they will pretend to go trick-or-treating in the house. So this is all her plan. So she have a card for every house. So she's going to pretend there's cards and they're going to pretend to knock and they're going to watch scary movies and they're going to go to each door and one of the parents will give the candy or she will or whatever. So she came up with this whole creative, dramatic thing. And I have a feeling that this Halloween will probably stick in her memory more because she's contributing to the creative, fun, that she wants to do. And of course, her parents are going to go along with it. But I was like,
which is wonderful. That's so wonderful.
Yeah, she told me this yesterday, and I said, and whose plan was this? And she said, mine, of course. I said, yes, of course.
Whose else would it have been?
But, I think when we do things differently, I also feel like, when you celebrate birthdays without the whole big shebangs and the big to-dos, the little simple ones that got done probably over the last 7 months, we've all celebrated birthdays in a different way. They'll probably remember those more because they were more creative and more intimate or whatever you want to call it.
I have to say real quick, and then we'll get to some more comments. So my youngest son, that was his senior year. So many senior activities got canceled because of COVID, and prom was one of them. And like we had his suit and his date had her dress. So for the night of prom, we like decorated our dining room and did a very nice dinner for them on just our china and stuff. And anyway, when his date got over here, I go, I know this is not what y'all expected, but you're going to remember this way more than if you'd gone to your actual prom. And they were both like, you know what, you're probably right. So it's those small things that will stick with them more. Yeah. Okay. So, Marianne Harmon said the statement about wishing I would have been more present is so true. Y'all know I have a hard time reading. Hold on. It is what I always feel guilty about. There's nothing that can be done. As Prerna said, we'll just all be great grandmothers. And then Zlata talked about a job that requires 55, 77 hours a week are not mom friendly. And the balance is key for mothers and fathers raising children. That could be a whole other conversation of, taking care of your marriage and your spouse and taking care of yourself. Marianne, teenagers are harder because the front of the brain, the emotion has not connected to the logical part yet. Ooh. And then Zlata said facts. Thank you guys for echoing that. Oh, and Atul is here. Hello.
Hi, Atul. Nice to see you. Where's Preeti? I hope she's with you. So, somebody just said that the demands of the motherhood, I really feel like these 3 numbers should be tattooed somewhere on a mother. Do you know what they are?
No.
Okay. Here's the new tattoo number for mothers.
Okay. Wait, what?
Somebody just said, managing the marriage, the life, the job. It reminded me that a woman or a mother is like the center of the earth and everything that happens around her, the 360 around her. So marriage, work, family, kids, home, groceries, it's like 360 around her. She has to balance all of that. Then it's 365. You go 365 all the time, like every single day you have to be a mom, and 24/7. So 360, 365, 24/7. So think about that. The weight of that job. Think of the importance of that job. Think about how crucial you are to your family. Think of what a wonderful blessing to be a mom. And we are spending so much of that with the guilt, but let's release each other of the perfection guilt. Let's release ourselves of should have, could have, would have. And let's just celebrate the fact that, gosh, we have this amazing opportunity to touch so many lives, to make a difference. And good or bad, I showed up. I showed up.
Right.
That's it.
And I think one thing too, when we talk about celebrating each other and not judging each other, what might work for you as a mom might not work for somebody else. And I have some friends who are like very honest in that and saying, I am a better mom if I work full time and my child goes to school and they do after school care. But I have friends who say they feel energized. And so they do feel that they're able to volunteer more, and that, within the child's school, when they pick the child up, they're more present. And so I think we need to keep in mind that what works for you as a mom or as parents might not be what's best for somebody else. So not to judge, and just, we're all doing the best we can. And like I said, celebrating that.
Yeah. And I really think mothers are role models. I mean, I happened to have an amazing mom who has taught me so much. And you learn from your mother, but you also adjust for the next generation.
Exactly.
And I wonder if how many people watching can relate to this. As your children get older, my girls are now in their 30s, and we truly are friends. I mean, we can talk about anything. And I know when they're being honest with me, I'm learning something from that. They're still teaching me. Like the teaching, learning hasn't stopped because they grew up or I grew up or whatever. If you have that relationship, and I think that's what we should ask ourselves, right? Instead of coulda, shoulda, woulda, or buying this or fixing the house or this and that, what kind of a relationship do I want with my children for the rest of the life? Do I want us to be friends, true friends? Do I want us to be formal? Do I want us to be just follow directions because I said so? Do I want to be the authoritarian because I'm running the show? Like, what is it? What's the goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? If your goal is clear, you're probably going to have a clearer path getting there.
Right. Yeah.
And every family is different. Every mother is different. There's no one size fits all. But what do you want out of your relationship? What do you want out of your life? Sow the seeds for that and work towards that.
Yeah. Zlata says, I'm best friends with my mother. She's my real life hero. Zlata, I remember when you and I met a couple of years ago, I was talking about that. We're both so lucky to have one another. That's awesome.
Agreed.
So I thought it'd be kind of fun if we each get, like, if you had to give like one piece of advice, or what was an aha moment for you as a parent, what would you say?
Okay, I want to hear from the chats as well, because if we are sharing advice, then
yes,
we want
y'all have to share
everybody. Yes, thank you everybody for joining though. Thank you, because this is not a very easy time in the morning. You are very probably busy, but here you are, and we appreciate you. So I think the one advice that you go first.
Okay. Well, and I shared this with you the other day. This was 10, 11 years ago. And I will be honest, I was in a rough patch in my life at that point, and was kind of struggling with some things. And I was at a women's conference, and the speaker was talking about your relationship with your spouse and your relationship with your children. And she said, one of the worst things that we can do as parents is validate ourselves based on our children's performance or lack thereof. And I remember that just being a light bulb to me. And she's like, that is too much pressure on a child for them to have to validate you. And she's like, children have free will. Children are going to make mistakes. They're going to do things that might not be in alignment with what you hope for. But she's like, you cannot validate yourself on that. And I shared with you, Prerna, that when I do trainings with teachers on working with parents, I bring this up because you might just bring up a simple thing that happened, but to a parent to hear their child made a mistake or whatever could be just like a dagger to their heart, and we'll get the knee-jerk reaction. So we've just got to be careful that we're not validating ourselves based on that. I have friends who are wonderful parents, and their children might have taken the path that the parent was not hoping for, but just making sure that you find a way within yourself to validate yourself and not put that pressure on the child.
Great. And ever since you mentioned that the other day, I have remembered this. So this is really good advice. Don't validate yourself as a parent based on their success or lack of. I think the one word of advice or wisdom or whatever you want to call it, I would say is I don't know if you're familiar with Khalil Gibran. He's a poet, and I love what he's written about children. And the one sentence that stands out to me that he wrote was, the children don't belong to you, they come through you. You don't own them. And I think remembering that is our job on earth, is to create them to be the best human beings. They're arrows that came out of our bows. They come out through us, they go out and they do great things in the world, but we don't own them and we
Right.
shouldn't possess them. And so I think that is probably something that I try to live by, that, you are your independent person and I can't own you, possess you, and control you. The best I can do is be the best bow so you can be a strong arrow to land your mark, or wherever, your journey is, or your destiny is, or whatever you want to call it.
Right. I have a friend, last year we were in a conversation because we were talking about, I joke about I have two great, wonderful boys, but they are, I joke, they're just good average kids, and they're both at a good university, and they're going to be okay. But sometimes our expectations for our kids are way too high. And one of my friends, she said, really all you can hope for is that you create adults who are productive, self-sufficient, and kind. And she goes, and if you've done that, you've done a good job. And I'm like, that is totally true. We put so much pressure on ourselves. And then, like you said, we don't own them. Like, they are, we're here to help develop them and help create, again, self-sufficient people. But the reality is that they're their own beings. They're their own thing. Okay, so as lots has said, aha moment, my son loves me no matter how together or not together I feel or am. He truly unconditionally loves me and accepts me in all my seasons of life, good, bad, ugly. He's 6, so let's revisit this when he's 16. It'll still be the same. He might express it differently, but it'll still be the same.
Well, you've laid a good foundation, so I'm sure it'll happen, Zlata. Keep going.
Yes. Sheila, to remember that they watch everything, so we need to take care of ourselves. That's great advice, and that's a great lesson for them, for a lifelong skill. Absolutely.
And Sheila, also, I think to your point that they watch everything, I think our actions speak louder than our words. So are we walking the walk and talking the talk, or am I telling you something? I think Sheila raised a good point that they learn by watching, and so much of it is unsaid, but they follow.
Yeah. I for Mother's Day this year, my husband had the boys like do a toast for me, and it got a little emotional between the four of us, but I mean, like, and sweetly, but my youngest son wrote me the sweetest note, and just and I have it tucked away to keep forever, but it just was I don't know, it was just so special, and it's so wonderful, because you wonder sometimes, okay, am I making an impact? What are they seeing? And Jackson said stuff like, you show me how to set goals. You show me. I'm like, oh, yay.
Oh, sweet.
Sana, I always mispronounce your name. I am so like.
Hi, Sana. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for joining us. I apologize for always mispronouncing that. And then Sheila said, amen.
And what did Sana say?
She said hello.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she just joined in. Yes.
I thought she was giving us advice and wisdom.
Yeah. Can anybody add anything else, or any other advice you would give? And what's interesting is, there's just different seasons of parenting. And, I think it's always good for us just to share, maybe with the parent who's a season behind us, and just go, it's okay. My lifelong friend, she has 3 younger children. So we're on different spectrums of parenting, but we had dinner the other night, and she just mentioned, wasn't my best parenting moment. I go, look, you're going to have many more of those, and it's okay. It's going to happen. Just it's just like you were saying earlier, Prerna. It's just recognizing it and then moving on.
Yeah, I think we're all going to have parenting moments that are not our shining star moments. And I think we just have to have grace on ourselves and say, okay, I didn't show up with my best self, but I learned from it and I can do better. I think the journey as children get older is so beautiful, how it evolves. And I feel like I have a very lovely relationship with my daughters now, which of course, when they were teenagers, I never would have dreamt that we would get to this point. I didn't think we would be alive to face this day, but here we are. And I think honesty is something that is key in our relationship. And I appreciate the girls being honest with me, and vice versa. And, but whatever it is that's your value, whatever it is that's your trigger, honesty happens to be one of mine. They didn't like it when I was honest when they were younger. But you're so blunt. You just say that. Well, I'm sorry. That's just who I am. I think the other thing we can say for advice for parenting is saying sorry. I think sometimes as adults and parents, we expect the children to come first and apologize. But I think if we can open the door and say, I'm sorry, that wasn't the best that I did. I'm sorry I lost patience. I'm sorry I got angry. I'm sorry that, let's talk about this because, but I think sometimes parents feel like the other person, the child, has to apologize, but I feel like we lead by example.
Right. Yeah. And like you said earlier, hindsight's always 2020. And and one of the things that I had said to my boys, I think it was on Mother's Day when we were kind of having this emotional moment. I'm like, sometimes I wasn't at my best as a parent, but that's all I had to give at that particular moment. Because of whatever was happening in my life, that's all I had to give, and I am sorry, but and I think it's just having those honest conversations, and we all learn and grow from it.
So we've gone past our time, and I know we could talk for 2 more hours because this is such an interesting topic. And I'm so happy that you had a memorable Mother's Day through all this. And, boys especially, because I've heard boys don't usually express emotions nicely. So it's very gratifying to know that they appreciated specific things that you're doing for them, which I think is so powerful.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet boys.
Yes,
they're pretty good.
All right. Well, last minute thoughts or words from anybody, because we have gone past, and I know everybody's.
I know. Sheila said, when you were talking, I think that's cultural too. My husband feels that it's a child's job, and because of respect, I have to remind him we're trying to teach them. And Samuel Horn, who's joined us, he said, I think it's important for you just to show up. Sorry that the things are moving. I think it's important for you just to show up and just be there and listen. And that goes so far.
Sam.
And Sanaa said, good to see you ladies taking on mom stuff. I'm single and I love my mom unconditionally for whatever she does for us. She's the best woman in the universe.
Oh, yeah. Here's to moms. Let's just all say thank you, moms, all our moms, whoever, yes, let's just say thank you, moms in general.
Yes. Yeah. My mom's wonderful, and my grandmothers are wonderful. So it's, it's a hard job.
I don't have grandmothers, but I have a mom who's very strong and who's taught me a lot, and I'm very grateful for her every day.
One of my grandmothers is still alive. She's 97. Nice. So I haven't seen her in about a year because of COVID, but and she lives in Austin. But yeah, I had a great relationship with both my grandmothers. So
okay, great. Well, we have to get on with our day because we promised 30 minutes, and I know we can talk longer because this is such a fascinating topic. We appreciate you all taking the time, sharing your thoughts and comments, and making us feel like we are together, even though we're not.
Yes.
It felt really nice to connect with all of you, and have a wonderful week.
Yes, and if you think of something that we can continue the conversation on, let us know. This is the first time we've done Zoom and recorded it. So our hope is that we're going to capture this video and put it onto our YouTube channels. So if you want to go back and watch it or share it with anybody, it will be there for that. So
yeah, I wish there was a way we could see each other. I wish there was a way that we could see all of our friends together, and then it would have felt like a real gathering of friends. But anyhow, all right. Thank you.
I think this is great. Yes. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right.